My name is Father Elias Romero, and for almost 30 years, I dedicated my life to the Catholic Church. I wasn't just a priest. I was a man who truly believed I was doing God's work, leading his people and guiding them toward salvation. I spent my days preaching sermons, hearing confessions, performing sacraments, and counseling those in need. My parish wasn't the biggest, nor the most well-known, but it was my home, and I cherished my role as its shepherd. From the moment I entered the seminary, I had no doubt that I was on the right path. The traditions, the structure, the sacredness of the church gave me purpose. It was a clear road, a set of rules that, if followed, would lead to eternal life. I never questioned it. For years, I immersed myself in prayer, fasting, study, and service. I truly believe that by teaching others to observe sacraments, confess their sins, and follow the authority of the Church, I was leading them toward God's kingdom. But over time, doubt began to creep in. It started with small moments, ones I brushed off as distractions or temptations. I remember a time when a woman came to confession, her voice shaking as she admitted she had been away from the church for years. She had lived in guilt, believing that because she had not confessed regularly, she was cut off from God. As I listened, something inside me stirred. Could her forgiveness really depend on me? Did my words truly have the power to absolve her sins? Or was that power something only God could give? Another moment came when I saw church politics firsthand. I had been advocating for a charity program to help struggling families in the parish, people who couldn't afford to put food on their tables. But when I brought the idea to the diocese, I was told to focus on the church's internal affairs first, that the sacraments were more important than social programs. That didn't sit right with me. Had Jesus himself not said, "What you have done for the least of these, you have done for me"? It wasn't just these moments. There were many more. Decisions that seemed to be made for status and reputation, rather than for compassion and service. Sermons that focused more on rituals than on a relationship with Christ. Still, I pushed the doubts aside. I told myself that faith is obedience, that to question was to waver, but the doubts never left me. And on July 16th, 2021, everything changed. It had been a long day. I had led morning mass, counseled a troubled marriage, and spent the afternoon preparing for Sunday's sermon. By the time evening arrived, I was exhausted but content, believing I had spent the day serving the Lord. I was in my office, reviewing my homily, when I felt it. A sudden, crushing pain spread across my chest. It was like a vice tightening around my heart. I gasped, grabbing the desk for support, but the pressure only grew stronger. My vision blurred. The room spun. I tried to cry out, to reach for the phone, but my limbs wouldn't move. My entire body collapsed onto the cold floor. Darkness surrounded me. Then, everything stopped. The pain, the fear, the struggle for breath. It was gone. The next thing I knew, I was somewhere else. I was no longer in my office, no longer lying on the floor, no longer trapped in my failing body. I stood in a place so beautiful, so pure, that human words cannot describe it. The air itself felt alive, filled with warmth, light, and overwhelming peace. I wasn't afraid. I wasn't in pain. I was whole. Then I felt a presence behind me. Before I even turned, I knew who it was. For years, I had preached about him, taught others about him, led people in prayers to him. But in that moment, I realized something earth-shattering. I had never truly known him. I turned, and there he was. The moment my eyes met his, I fell to my knees. Jesus stood before me, not as an idea, not as a painting in a cathedral, but as a living, breathing reality. His presence was overwhelming, more powerful than anything I had ever felt in my entire existence. His eyes, full of love, full of sorrow, full of depth beyond human understanding, locked onto mine. I expected judgment. I expected condemnation. But instead, he extended his hand to me. "Elias," he said, his voice both gentle and unshakable, "you have been faithful in your service, but you have not truly known me." His words cut through me like a sword. I wanted to protest, to cry out, but Lord, I have given my life to you. I have served you. But the moment I tried to speak, the truth settled over me like a heavy weight. I had spent years following traditions, obeying church doctrine, performing rituals, but I had not sought him personally. Tears filled my eyes as he continued. "You followed the traditions of men," he said, "but did you follow me?" His words shook me to my core. I had been so sure that in following the church, I was following God. But now, standing before the very one I had dedicated my life to, I saw the painful reality. I had been leading people to religion, but not to him. And that realization broke me. Jesus lifted his hand, and in an instant, I saw a vision. I saw churches filled with people kneeling, reciting prayers, following traditions, but their hearts were far from him. I saw priests and religious leaders, dressed in robes, preaching sermons, performing sacraments, yet their souls were empty. I saw congregations, convinced they were following Christ, but they did not know him personally. For years, I believed that salvation was found in rituals, sacraments, confession, and obedience to the church. But Jesus showed me the truth. Salvation was never in religion. Salvation was in him alone. Many would call on his name, yet they did not know him. They followed rules, not relationship. I wept. Everything I had built my life upon, everything I had taught others, had been a partial truth, but not the full truth. Jesus turned to me, his expression full of both love and urgency. "The time is short," he said. "You must go back and tell them the truth." Tears streamed down my face. "I don't want to leave you," I pleaded. "You are not alone," he said, "but you must return. There is still work to be done." And then, in an instant, I was ripped away from the light. I gasped as my lungs filled with air. A sharp, stabbing pain shot through my chest, and my entire body felt heavy, weak, fragile. I heard the muffled voices of doctors and nurses, the beeping of machines, and the rush of movement around me. The bright fluorescent hospital lights stung my eyes as I tried to make sense of where I was. I had been dead for 10 minutes. The medical team was stunned. One of the nurses was visibly shaken, her eyes wide as she whispered to another, "I swear, I thought we lost him." I could barely move. My limbs felt like they were made of stone, and my mind was still caught somewhere between the glory of Christ's presence and the harsh reality of this world. But one thing was certain. I had been with Jesus, and he had set me back for a reason. For the next several days, I remained in the hospital. Doctors ran tests, searching for any signs of brain damage or lasting complications. They found none, but I knew I was not the same man. Something inside me had changed forever. I was no longer comfortable with the rituals, the traditions, the systems I had once embraced without question. I had seen the truth, the painful reality that many who believe they are following Christ are actually far from him. I had been one of them. As I lay in that hospital bed, I kept replaying Jesus' words in my mind. "You followed the traditions of men, but did you follow me? Many call on my name, yet they do not know me." I couldn't ignore it. I had spent years preaching about God, teaching others how to practice religion, but I had never truly sought a relationship with him. I had trusted in church authority, in rituals, in doctrine, but I had not truly trusted in Jesus alone. And I knew I couldn't keep this to myself. When I was released from the hospital, I knew I had to make a decision that would change everything. I could not continue as a priest. I could not keep leading people into religious routine without telling them the truth. When I announced my decision to step away from the priesthood, it sent shockwaves through my parish. Many were confused, even angry. "How can you leave the church?" they asked. "You are a priest. This is your calling." But I knew the truth now. My calling was never to serve an institution. My calling was to serve Jesus. Some of my closest friends in the church turned their backs on me. Others pleaded with me to reconsider, warning that I was throwing away everything I had built. But I had already lost everything that mattered. Because if I had never truly known Jesus, then what was it all for? So I walked away, not from God, but from religion that had taken his place. After leaving the priesthood, I dedicated my life to sharing what Jesus had shown me. I began traveling, speaking in churches, in small groups, even online, wherever people would listen. I didn't have the title of priest anymore, but I had something greater, a message that came directly from Jesus Christ himself. And that message is this: religion will not save you. Church traditions, rituals, and good works will not bring you eternal life. Salvation is found in Jesus Christ alone. It is not found in a denomination, a system, or a priest. It is found in a personal relationship with Jesus himself. I had spent years believing that by following rules, I was securing my salvation. But Jesus showed me the truth. He never wanted rituals. He wanted me. And he wants you too. One of the most terrifying and powerful things Jesus showed me in my near-death experience was the eternal destinies of those who trust in religion rather than in Him. I saw two places. One was a place of unimaginable beauty, where those who had truly known Jesus stood in His presence, worshiping, rejoicing, completely whole. The other was a place of darkness, sorrow, and separation. And to my horror, I saw many who had called themselves Christians in that place of separation. These were not wicked murderers or criminals. These were people who had attended church their entire lives. They had recited prayers. They had taken communion. They had trusted in their works, their religion, their traditions. But they had never truly given their hearts to Jesus. I saw priests and pastors, faithful churchgoers, lifelong believers, all standing in shock, crying out, "Lord, Lord, did we not do many things in your name?" And I heard Jesus say the words that shattered my soul. "I never knew you. Depart from me." I had taught people to confess their sins to a priest. But had I ever told them to confess their sins directly to Jesus? I had led people to trust in sacraments. But had I ever told them to trust in the sacrifice of Christ alone? For years, I had believed that my priesthood, my rituals, my religious duties were leading people to God's kingdom. But Jesus showed me that without a true relationship with Him, none of it mattered. And He sent me back to tell you this. I am here to tell you that Jesus is calling you, not to religion, but to Himself. If you have been putting your trust in your church, your traditions, your good works, I urge you to stop. Jesus does not want your rituals. Jesus does not want empty prayers. Jesus wants your heart. The time is short. He is coming soon, and when that day comes, will He know you? This is not about denominations. This is not about what church you attend. This is about knowing Jesus personally, about surrendering your life to Him and putting your full trust in Him alone. Jesus is the only way, not a priest, not a ritual, not a church, only Jesus. If you feel God speaking to you, do not ignore it. Take time today to seek Him with your whole heart. Ask Jesus to reveal Himself to you. Pray, not to a saint, not to a priest, but directly to Him. If this message is spoken to you, share this testimony with others. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment about how God is working in your life. Together, we can spread the truth of Jesus Christ and wake up a world that is lost in religion instead of relationship. Jesus is calling. Will you answer?